Good morning, everybody. Yeah, okay. So, my name is Gaurav. I work with Yahoo as principal engineer, working mainly in the front-end technologies. And it's been just about a year at Yahoo, and I'm really excited about the year that I've spent at Yahoo. Spending a lot of time actually working on something called Yahoo Mojito. Now, before I get started with Mojito, let me just say probably some questions for you, and just check you guys are awake or not. How many have heard about Yahoo Mojito? A few hands. How many of you did some Hello World on Mojito? Okay, one hand. That's good. Okay. Okay. Now, probably a prelude before that. How many of you love Node.js? I expected a lot more hands. Okay. JavaScript. Oh, I thought everybody would raise their hands. Okay. Oh, Camel. Okay. So before just getting into the Mojito part itself, there is something called Yahoo Cocktails. Not the cocktails that you get in the hotels, but a different one. It's a JavaScript-based framework which helps you to work in an online-offline mode for your application, helps you to create multi-device, cloud-ready web application platform per se. So as the name says, Cocktails, it's a mixture of a lot of things. And some of the things that it offers is command line tools, internationalization, scaling, and more importantly, a single language code. So it's JavaScript everywhere. JavaScript on the server, JavaScript on the client. Well, in the middleware, there is no JavaScript. So what's really Mojito is? So Mojito is one of the cocktails. It's a JavaScript-based MVC framework for web applications. Now, when I say web applications, again, you're talking about something that can run within the browser, be it on your mobile, be it on your desktop, be it on any of your devices, including smart TVs now. Formally, as the website says, it helps you to build high-performance applications, which you can cater to across devices. And the good part is, it helps you to do everything in HTML5, runs seamlessly on both the client and the server side. So server side is built on top of Node.js. Okay. And as Satyan said, YUI is a fantastic API which can automatically switch the context, helps you to do that without writing an external code of your own. And that's something that what we'll be leveraging on Mojito. So if I look at the Mojito stack, at the core sits the JavaScript framework, JavaScript runtime. So on Node.js, you have V8. On the client side, you have browser JavaScript engines. On top of JavaScript engine is your Node.js. So Node.js, again, has a whole bunch of frameworks on top of it, your Connect and Express. That gives you the platform layer, that gives you the HTML layer, that gives you the HTTP layer, in fact. You have the complete YUI library, which runs on top of JavaScript. So you can write a common piece of code across devices, across browsers. And the best part is when you need to emit out your HTML, you don't have to write the entire HTML yourself. You don't have to say y.node.create. You don't have to say, set inner HTML or something like that. All you can do is you can work with Mustache or Handlebars. Now, how many of you heard about Mustache templates? I don't have a mustache, a different one. I have a beard. Okay. Handlebars? Wow, cool. So in case you're not aware of that, you can just search on Yahoo, not Google, on mustache and handlebars. Okay. Okay. Mustache.js, again, a JavaScript. In fact, the Mustache, we'll say, is now more or less language independent framework. You have got bindings for almost all the languages. And the one that we use here is for JavaScript. Now, on top of this mega structure sits a mini structure called Mojito. Now, although it's a mini structure, it provides you the mega benefits that we will see right now. Let's get started with some of the application components that Mojito has. In terms of the core framework, you have the complete Mojito runtime. And some of the components of Mojito runtime are your view engine. So today you love Mustache or Handlebars. Tomorrow you come up with something beautiful, better than Mustache or Handlebars. You can plug and play with it. So extending or probably replacing your view engine, so replacing your template engine is through a component called view engine. You have a middleware section where you can get access to the raw code or the raw request that is there in case you want to do a byte-by-byte processing of the incoming data and respond probably streaming data. You have command line interface that helps you to get started with, something that I'll take up in my second session, which will actually be a complete demo of building your applications on top of the Yahoo tech stack, the complete infrastructure of Yahoo technologies. Add-ons are something which is very critical to the working of Mojito. Add-ons is something that will give you access to almost anything and everything that you'll require working with Mojito. So in case you want to work with the cookies, you want to work with the cookies on the server side, on the client side, you want to process the query strings, the body of the form that has been submitted, one piece of code that can work on the client side, and the same piece of code that can work on the server side. Now, Mojito applications, I mentioned about it's an MVC framework. So somewhere we should have a model, somewhere we should have a view, and somewhere we should have a controller. Now, these three units, when put together, build what are known as Mojito widgets or the Mojits. So Mojit is your unit component that you can deploy within an application. Think of it like a widget which has a complete functionality, which has a complete logic. Of course, logic can sit on the server and on the client. And you can take this reusable Mojit, plug it in application 1, application 2, application 3. And the good part is, if you want to publish it for everybody to use it, you can publish it on npm.js as well, your Node.js registry that is there. So your Mojit will comprise of model, which will have access to all the data, the view, which is a combo between the data and the final templates that is there, the data being pushed to the templates. And all these two components are glued together by the controller. So controller looks at the incoming data, processes the model, and says, oh, I have to show this UI, I have to show some other UI. And another part, the fourth part of your MVC is a binder. Now, the three components we'll see are something very interesting in how they work with. Binder is something that will help you to connect to the events on the client side. So whenever a key happens, whenever a mouse gesture happens, you want to intercept those events and probably process the data. So binder will, the one that will be responsible for connecting all these UI events to your nodes. And when you need access to the data on the server, you make use of something as powerful. What we'll see is the proxy. So proxy will abstract out all your I/O calls. All you can say is proxy dot some method we will see, and you can get access to the data. So you don't have to worry about XHR, you don't have to worry about I/O, you don't have to worry about JSONP, don't have to worry about anything. Last couple of bits, everything goes along with some configurations. So you have configurations at the application level. Something that helps you to configure things which are system-wide, helps you to configure the routing part. If you say, for example, land on the URS abcd.com/x, what is the UI to be shown? /y, what is the UI to be shown? So that's your routing. This is now server-side routing. What Satyan demonstrated on the YUI app framework was the client-side routing. Mojito on its roadmap is combining or joining hands with the YUI routing part. So at some point in time, probably in maybe a couple of quarters, you should see these two routing merging together, so you don't have to write probably two different pieces of code. And one of the fantastic things that you get with your Mojito are this concept of dimensions. So let me just take a bit about talking about dimensions. Okay. Today, when you have to probably write your applications targeting to various devices or various geographies or various languages, what are the options that you do? I'm asking you guys. Let's see how many of you are awake. So say, for example, if you need to create a UI specific to Europe or to US or to Asian markets, how do you do that? Yeah? IATN, so that's the localization international part. But the question is, how can you, what kind of frameworks do you use to keep probably your UI separate, especially say, in case you are catering to regions which have left to right languages versus right to left languages, you may have a completely different set of UIs. Or let's say in terms of the real estate that you have on the browser, probably catering to a desktop browser versus maybe an iPhone or an iPad mini or iPad browser. How do you keep these UIs in a maintainable form? Let me put it this way. So what are the things that you do? Something that you have done in your past? Not done? Oh, wow. Okay, great. So what we will look at is, in our demo, is how can we use this concept of dimensions to say, if I am being rendered on an iPhone device, do not choose UI X, but choose UI Y. And the way that we will configure is, you really don't have to worry about subsequently saying that it comes from iPhone or iOS or Android per se. So you can decouple, and if you want, you can put them in two different files altogether, so that probably two different designers can evolve them. So maybe templates, which is a guy which is very good at working with, the iPhone, he can continue to evolve the UI for the iPhone. Somebody who is very expert in creating user experience for the desktop, he can evolve the UI for the desktop. And you as developer, you really don't have to worry about how to mix and how to merge the two interfaces. And the last bits, some framework modules that are available out of the box. HTML frame is something that we will use more often than not everywhere, because that's the one that will give you the base Chrome of your final HTML. And then we have a very powerful lazy load mojit. So it says that, do not execute things on the server side immediately. Let things settle down on the client side, probably make an AJAX call, get the data, so that for the user, he gets at least the loading part immediately. He may not get the full UI, but he gets the loading and sees that, there is something happening in the application. So if I look at the mojit, something that I talked about, the model, view, and the controller, the best part about these three components is you can configure to choose, saying that a piece of controller, which is a business logic, would run only on the server side because it has some secret data. There is some piece of code which will run only on the client side because it doesn't require anything from the server. And you can do something interesting, saying that, hey, there is a piece of code which is compatible with Node.js on the server as well as browser on the client side. I don't have any secret data. And what I can do is, if it is invoked on the server, through a server context, I'll say, let it invoked through whatever is available on the server. However, maybe if some user clicks it, I just want to refresh the data, do not send any request to the server because it is capable of executing right on the client side. So one piece of code, you don't have to do anything barring one trick, and the same piece of code can work seamlessly on the server side and on the client side, not or, but and. It's only the binder piece of code because it responds to user events that runs only on the client side. Okay. Getting Mojito is very easy if you have npm or Node.js installed. So it's available as an npm module. All you can do is npm install Mojito. If you want it in a central location, -g for global. The entire code is available on GitHub. It's all open source. And if you want to install it from the source itself, you can clone the GitHub repository, github.com/yahoo/Mojito. And you can again install it from the latest code. So try not to work with the latest code, but maybe the milestone releases that are there. So it will help you to ensure that the things are very stable. I'll just walk down through a very simple code, just the code, not the output, of how you can get started with the hello world in Mojito. Okay. So once you have installed Mojito, npm install Mojito -g or through the source code, the Mojito is a command line utility that is the driving force behind everything that you will do on Mojito. The first thing that we say is, I want to create an app called Hello World app. And then what we'll require is a mojit. So at least one mojit, because that's a container, that's the UI that we want to build up. And the boilerplate will give you some basic code to start off with. And just 5 lines of code will help you to get started with at least a Hello World application on Mojito. Well, the boilerplate code, the only trick part here is the URL that you have to browse to. It's a little tricky URL. By default, the port number is 8666, and you go through a strange syntax saying /@helloworld/mojit/index. I'll keep this away from the talk right now, why this syntax and how you can change it. I'll probably come back to this when I go into the demo on Mojito. But this is how you can, in 5 steps, you can start with a hello world on Mojito. So things so far look promising. Yes? Now people are sleeping. Can we have some shout? Yes. Okay. So the question is, why Mojito? So one of the things that you get is entire code base in one language. So you don't have to worry about PHP on the server side or Python on the server side and JavaScript on the client side. Every time you're doing JSON encode, JSON decode, encode URI component, decode URI component. I hate those things. Now, Mojito helps you to keep away from all of these things. Another benefit that you get is it can automatically switch the context based upon the device that is here. Of course, device is just one of the contexts. You can say change the context based upon the region of your request it has originated from. So if your request originates from APAC, probably do something else. If it originates from Europe, do something else, and so on and so forth. The best part is you're not just restricted to working with YUI. Of course, you would like to stick to YUI because that's the core. Everything is built on top of YUI, so you get seamless things, no questions asked. But then in case you want to use jQuery, if you want to intermix with Bootstrap or Dojo, you're free to do that. Nobody stops you from doing that. And the things are context aware in terms of where they get executed. The server side, the client side, maybe a universal piece of code. Okay. So some last bits of where you can find everything. Your cocktails is on developer.yahoo.com/cocktails, and /Mojito will take you to Mojito. And this presentation is available on SlideShare 10HTKCKD. Okay, well, this gave me some code around it. Okay. So you can get this entire presentation on SlideShare. So happy hacking, guys. You can connect me to any of those items. And Master Gaurav is my Twitter ID as well as the Yahoo Messenger. And you can search for me on Google, you can search for me on Yahoo, and you can search me anywhere in this room as well. Okay. Any questions? Yep.
What about IDE support?
Okay, so the question is what about IDE support? JavaScript is a very tricky language for IDE support, being a dynamic language. So you can pick any IDE of your choice. We do have an Eclipse IDE, an Eclipse plugin integration, but that's not open sourced yet. We should be getting that open source probably in Q2 or Q3. I do not have the exact roadmap idea. Other than that, you're free to use Sublime Text, VI, Emacs, anything that you want. Anything that works with JavaScript will work for you, even TextMate as well, or Notepad on Windows. But yeah, Eclipse IDE plugin is something that is in the pipeline, on the roadmap. Yeah. Okay, WebSocket. So as far as the hosting part is concerned, something that I have not discussed in detail, Cocktails has something called Manhattan, which is your actually cloud-based hosting part. So Manhattan WebSockets is out there. It's just that Manhattan still has not been put into use for developers outside Yahoo. So it was announced in 2011 that Manhattan will be going live. Sorry. However, the date was still not given at that point in time. So expect maybe in some time Manhattan should be coming up for you. But as far as the raw Mojito is concerned, WebSockets is not something that Mojito supports. Mojito as a simple HTTP server supports. It does not support that part. Having said that, you can write a small layer. I mean, you do have Node.js modules that help you to do with WebSockets. And if you use those modules, you can very well seamlessly work with WebSockets as well on your Mojito app. So it's just that by default, that config is not there. You can just add some extra depths on your dependencies on your module, and you can work with WebSockets. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Here you go. Okay. So the question is, how is Mojito is compared to Ruby on Rails? In terms of the concept of the framework, the MVC framework, yes, it is very similar to Ruby on Rails, but in terms of implementation, it is very different. In Ruby on Rails, you have to do one side on Ruby and the client side in JavaScript. Client side, there is no escape. You have to be in JavaScript. Mojito helps you avoid that code. The good part is, if you want to get started with some Hello World app, or you want to just do a POC, prototyping of your application, you can do everything right on the client side. And when you are ready to go, you can start putting up bits on the server side without having you to rewrite any piece of code. You can just put the things out there. In fact, one of the things that I was developing how many of you heard about todomvc.com? Okay, I must say you guys should have a look at it. It's a very nice website by Adi Osmani. It helps you to compare various MVC frameworks on JavaScript. And when I started with implementing Todo MVC using Mojito, I found it really cool because I could take up the code which was using offline storage on the browser side, and when I moved the things on the server side, the amount of lines of code that I had to read write was 0. And I just changed something tricky, we'll see, and suddenly the context changed from the client-side storage to the server-side storage, and it works seamlessly for me. todomvc.com. Todo, Todo, mvc.com. So I think it has about 3 dozen JavaScript frameworks doing a comparison of using a very simple MVC app, a Todo app. Yeah. HTTPS. Okay. So HTTPS is a little tricky. So Mojito doesn't really care right now about too much about HTTP or HTTPS. You can again add your own certificate. So all the Express and your Connect modules which are on Node.js, so they support HTTPS, and the same configuration can be used to support HTTPS on Mojito as well. Yes. So you can use entire framework of it. So the HTTP layer of Mojito is built right on top of your Express itself. Yeah.
How does it work with browsers that read no JavaScript, like search engines and mobile?
Okay, good question. So for the browsers that do not support JavaScript, now the good part about working with Mojito is by default when you work with something called HTML frame, which gives you the Chrome part of it, you can have a flag which says deploy true or false. So when you say deploy true, JavaScript will be emitted out, and the initial Chrome will be made available. But because the device does not support JavaScript, the JavaScript will never be executed. Okay. So it's a little tricky question because what you can do is you can create your entire UI which looks as good as on the device that supports JavaScript and that does not support JavaScript. So if you can do a mix using YUI CSS, and I mean it has some tricky classes called JS and Node.js. Right? And then when you start playing around with the UI, the default UI probably that you get is something that is pulled up by the search engines which does not support JavaScript, or on the older devices that do not support JavaScript. And if they support JavaScript, then you can fancy them out. Yeah. So how much time do I have? 5 minutes? Okay. So I think I'm good to go. Any more questions? Okay, cool. Yeah.
I think it's worth asking which other IDEs people would be interested in.
Oh, yeah. So that's a good question. So what IDEs are your favorite IDEs? Let me put it this way. Yeah. Somebody asked a question about your IDE. VIs, I think, goes into the best ones. Okay, WebSphere. Did I heard it right? WebSphere? And it cannot right. Eclipse. Okay. So Eclipse, just hold on, probably a quarter or so. I don't know, maybe 2 quarters, and should have an Eclipse. Internally, I do use Eclipse IDE for Node.js app. I mean, for my Mojito app. Okay, cool. Thanks a lot, everybody. Can you repeat the question? Adobe Dreamweaver. Okay, so Dreamweaver is not really an IDE. It's more of an HTML editor, right? So you can take up your views and put them in your Dreamweavers. I would not like to do that. I mean, somewhere it's not good for doing that. So when you need mix of JavaScript and a lot of these things, I think get away from Dreamweaver. It's good for designing, but not really writing the apps. Okay. One last question, if there is. Okay, so I'm good to go. Over to you, Eric.
All right. Hello. Mike, am I live? Am I live? All right, all the way from India. Let's hear it one more time for Gaurav. Thank you.